Go ahead and be seated. Welcome, everyone, to the UAT 2015 Commencement. That's a great thing to say, especially after being here all day, getting ready for it. This is one of those moments that we look forward to throughout the year. It gives us a lot of energy and excitement. We're so very happy to have this time and space with all of you, and so I hope you enjoy the afternoon with us. We have a very special commencement planned for you. You can tell already it's maybe a little bit different than other commencements. If you're wondering what the nature of the glowing lights are on the graduates, take a look in your program. You'll find that each graduate has a color LED based upon the program that they're in. Also embedded in those badges is their current location. So as long as they're wearing that, we can track them, which is something we seldom could do while they were students. So welcome. In our audience today, we have, of course, the graduates. This is your day, this is your time, this is your moment. We hope you enjoy it. We really are enjoying to have this kind of culminating experience with you to celebrate what you've done to get here and what comes next. Behind you, I see an audience filled with families and friends, and I want to pause, of course, and say thank you. You've had a really hard job, and these graduates wouldn't be here without you. The support that you gave these graduates, the time you spent, the nudge when they needed that extra thing, just being there and helping them through a journey that's gone on for quite a while before they came to UAT and to this moment, which is really sort of their cusp before they go on to their future, is a big deal and not taken lightly. There's a lot of moms and dads and sisters and brothers and uncles out here who are good counsel. So thank you. We really appreciate that. And also, we have to thank the faculty and staff who are in the audience today. As we kick this off, you faculty and staff have had a journey with these graduates that echo what Professor Bellinger said, we're going to fail you because we don't want you to leave. It's a journey that began before you showed up as students, where we began caring and talking about you. And over the years, all of you have tried to work and support and help you grow to become this thing you wanted to be, that glimmer in your eye that you had that you said, I want a future to work in technology. And so we're very glad that you're here with us today. And of course, also, we have a whole community outside watching this on a live stream. That community includes family and friends who couldn't make it here. Also includes some graduates, on the online program who are attending virtually. At the appropriate moment, turn your tassel to when you stand in front of your Skype channel. Also, of course, I want to thank a few of the graduates who are here, who are from the online program, who've come to this ceremony, and their first experience in being part of the physical community is this moment. We're so very glad you're here. It's wonderful. One more set of introductions I want to do before we get underway. I'm joined on stage by folks at the dais that I will introduce for you. At the end, we have Councilwoman Kate Gallego from the Phoenix City Council. Next to her is Mayor Mark Mitchell from Tempe. Next to that is Ms. Cami LeBlanc from Intel. Next is Mr. David Bostic, the manager of faculty. Following him is Dr. Vida Moore, who oversees our graduate studies. Beyond her is Terry Stanfill, the executive director for the Arizona State Board for Private Post-Secondary Education. Beyond Terry, we are joined by the board chair of UAT, Mr. Jay Lohman. And after Jay is a board director, Mr. Jason Funk. And at the very end, we have the individual who is the guiding focus, the thought leader of the university, our president, Mr. Jason Pastillo. Let's thank all of them for being here. Okay, for family members, something you probably didn't see is that for the last 4, 5, 6 hours, depending on who showed up, there has been this sort of nervous energy that has happened as everybody lined up and we were alternately told where to stand and where to be and how tight our stuff should be and where the tassels should be and all that. And it's leading up to this really big moment, which actually generates quite a bit of nervous energy. And so, as your MC, I'm Dr. Bolman, the Provost of UAT. Forgot about that. As for the MC of this event, I want to loosen some of that energy out. So I'm going to begin the ceremony today by telling a few jokes. Okay, so anyone here, can anybody tell me why Stark Industries really doesn't do any lines of summer clothing? Well, you see, making flip-flops and shorts and t-shirts really isn't Tony Stark's strong suit. Another one. Okay, so Thor. We all know Thor. We all spend our time in Avengers. Do anybody know why Thor has as a best friend an ice salesman? Well, you see, to get to Asgard, you have to Bifrost. Now, for families, those who don't know your Norse mythology or your Marvel, Bifrost is the bridge it takes to get into Asgard. Okay. One more as a threat. Okay, does anybody really know why it is that Hulk makes a terrible comedian? I mean, because the Hulk, being the great green, monster of the Avengers, when he gets on stage, he gets nervous and the rage kicks in, and he goes straight to the punchline. All right, there you go. Okay, so we've burned off the nervous energy. Let's begin proper. And I want to begin for the graduates. I want you to think about something. As a race, as a species, have we evolved? Have we evolved? This is a question I think about often, and I've thought about it for years. Because as someone who's loved technology for as long as I can remember, I always had in my mind, like I think a lot of the parents and a lot of you graduates have, is that, the great thing is that barring a Godzilla incident, technology holds the great promise for growing humans. It's how we get better. We as species are unique on our planet because we are the folks who look around and have always said, you know what, if I take this piece over here and this thing over here and fiddle with it, I can make something that makes us better. So have we evolved? When I was in college, I was in a general education course in history, and we were talking about the Middle Ages or some such thing. And the instructor said, I know you all think you're smart, but I got some sad news for you. Humans have not evolved. We're not any better now than we were 400 years ago. Otherwise, and this is with all apologies to the Shakespeare instructors, otherwise, you wouldn't be saying right now, Shakespeare has a message for us today after half a millennia. If we'd evolved, we would have moved on. Well, that made me sad. I didn't care for that because I was like, again, we should be evolving. We're doing all these great things. But I went about my business, and like a lot of us who are in the generations ahead of technology, we did something remarkable. The era of technology from the 80s forward is this crazy epochal moment in human history where out of next to nothing, suddenly, we went from a moment where you had to tell people, hey, on a floppy disk, you got to punch a thing on the one side, to a moment now, and there's some parents that know what that is, to a moment now where there's people in the audience who don't know what a modem sounds like. And what's more important, we live in a time where very few people who didn't have lab coats had access to a computer, to a point now where maybe the poorest people in the oddest corners of the world have access to information. That is a profound change that affects you as graduates. And to put it in some context to that, I want you to think of something. Okay. Based upon the U.S. Patent Office, the U.S. Patent Office tracks the number of inventions since they started doing this about 150 years ago. And if you were to get that data, what you would see, and imagine it's a table, that in the 1920s, the number of new ideas, innovations stood about this tall. In the 30s it was like this, 40s it was like this, 50s, 60s. And somewhere around the 80s, I'd have to move this pile down to the floor because somewhere in the 80s and 90s, it went like this and this and this. And crazily, the number of new ideas that are created each and every year is bigger than the year before. This is the legacy of the last 30 years that you graduates are moving into. And what's more on that, the amount of knowledge in the world is profoundly changing. To put some perspective, the New York University did a study on knowledge and our inability to fully understand how much knowledge we're creating. And they put this information out that I'm going to share with you. Okay, most of us know what a megabyte is. Those of us who've been in computers for a while remember smaller numbers than that. But if you were to imagine a megabyte as an ant, okay, this big, a gigabyte would be the size of a person. Now, we kind of know what a gigabyte is. Our brains can wrap itself around that a little bit. We have flash drives that have got a few of those on them. Okay? A terabyte, a number that was so big that a lot of the parents in the audience probably remember dreaming of someday having it, but now for $150, you go to your local electronics store and you put it on your computer. A terabyte, if an ant's a megabyte, a terabyte is the largest bridge in the world. Going further, you have the petabyte. The petabyte would be about the size of New Zealand. And then you go bigger than that to the exabyte. If a megabyte is an ant, an exabyte is the size of the sun. In 2014, the world created 1.4 exabytes of new knowledge. Think about that. We can't put our brains around that size of data. But this is what you as graduates have in front of you. In a lot of ways, the dream of the previous generations of computer technologists is right on your doorstep. I think back on a movie that was sort of the message movie of technology of the previous generation. Some of you may have seen it, especially if you're a Talking Heads fan. There's a movie called True Stories. And if you haven't seen it, it's a great movie. In this story, you've got the front man of the band Talking Heads, David Byrne. He's traveling through this funky little town in Texas, and he's talking about music and technology and culture and how they're wound together. And he has this one moment where he is at a dinner table with the CEO of a technology company in Texas. And the actor Spalding Gray is talking about, oh my gosh, here we are sitting at 1990, and all of a sudden, everything is different. We're in a place where what workers are saying is we no longer want to work the way everyone has for the last thousands of years. We want to create our own definitions. We want to have all the knowledge. We want to build it all. And as he stands there, he's throwing things in the air. He says, the notion of the work week is vanishing because our generation wants to create and have the ability to create things. That was the defining theme of the last 30 years. And what it's given you is something remarkable that leads to evolution. It's given you this place where you are entering the world where, for free, you can reach out to Amazon and say, hey, I want this little device that I can plug onto my washing machine, and it says Tide on it, and I push it, and 2 days later, or less, a drone drops in and puts a box of Tide on your doorstep. That's a remarkable thing. The internet is ubiquitous. Knowledge is ubiquitous. All those things that the previous generation did are in place. And it tilted the world's axis. And that's just not rhetoric, it's truth. U.S. Bureau of Labor tracks the percentage of jobs in different fields. In the 1950s, about a half century ago, give or take, 3 categories of jobs. Basic blue-collar jobs, jobs. Service jobs and creative jobs. In 1950, creative jobs were less than 10% of all jobs. The same data is pointing to the Phoenix area and saying that in less than 7 years, somewhere between 30 and 43% of all jobs in the Phoenix area will be creative jobs. That is a profound change. That's tilting the world on its axis, and that is your opportunity. Because here's the thing. The previous generation, the technologists, fascinated with getting knowledge to everyone, and we did it. Their mission's done. The leaders have left the stage. Folks like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs have said, okay, guys, we're finished. It's your turn now. And what's remarkable about that is you get to define what's next. It's not like you came about in the mid-90s where we're still trying to string up the internet. You came now, when the technology works, and there's more information and knowledge than you could possibly lay your hands on. And you get to set the next agenda if you're brave enough to do it. And what's incredible to me about that, as I look at this class, you are a class that reflects that. Family, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the process we have called the Student Innovation Project. You may have heard your sons or daughters bemoan it at some point during the last 2 or 3 years. But for those of you who haven't heard of it, it's the culminating experience of a UAT student. It's this moment where at the very end, just before you graduate, you walk onto a stage and say, here's my idea for an innovation. Here's why it's relevant to you. I'm going to be downstairs to demo it for you a little bit. I'm going to give you a 30-minute deep dive presentation. And for the percentage of students who completely wire it together, say this is ready for market in a very short period of time. This is a reflection of a world where the creative class is 40%. And what's great about you as a graduating class is your final project's remarkable. I saw things like Ouroboros, which is a film that had special effects that were completely Hollywood quality. I saw things like Kinects from Xbox being used to drive security systems. I saw one of my favorite projects was this open source tablet. This is a wonderful tablet. I love my tablet. But this tablet addresses the fact that not everybody can afford an Apple product. So what if you could have a tablet that cost $60 to build? It was open source. And part of the beauty of it was wrapped in Legos, and so it had an aesthetic that was creative and wonderful. When I think of that, and the question comes to mind, are we evolving? I begin to shift. You as a class are very creative, and you get to set your next definition of what happens next. And what's interesting to me about that is it's going to be your definition and your project and your future, and you're equipped to do it. You've demonstrated it for the last 3 years. It's a bit scary, but what's great is you have a support system. Now, we as faculty can't really say what this next thing is. We've coached you, we've guided you, we're there to support you going forward. But this next thing is yours. But if I was to give you one thing to think about that would be your defining goal in your plate going forward, it would be this. Create a future where the people who create technology are as diverse as the people who use it. I'm going to say that again because it's incredibly important. Have the creators of technology across the board look like those who use it. This is important. In the United States right now, about 15% of students entering college in engineering areas are women. 85% are men. Think of what is lost by that. One thing we have learned with the growth of the internet is that the more things we know, the better the tools are, the better the results are. And so one of the things I would say to you going forward is take that to heart. You've made progress. The things are in place for it. But what you have the capacity to do is to figure out the puzzle of how the creators, in a world where creation is probably what most people do, and you're going to lead the way with it, is filled with as many different creative minds as possible. You will figure that out in a way that the previous generations can't. And you'll probably figure out 2 or 3 other wonderful things. I know it. And as you go forward, know this. Not everything is going to work, but that's okay. As far as UAT is concerned, we love you. We're your family. When you struggle, we are there to support you just like we have the last 3 years. But most importantly, through the struggles, you will succeed and you will do amazing things. And when you're there, we're going to celebrate those successes just the way we're celebrating you today, because you are part of the future of the world. And I suspect and believe, based upon the qualities of you, and I mean this deeply, that when you're an audience and someone talks about evolution, and someone goes in a college class and they say, hey, are human species getting any better? The message then is going to be, because of your efforts, absolutely, we are evolving and we are getting better. Congratulations, you graduates. We love you. We wish you the best. Tell us your stories.